We are cranking this into the Facebook profile, so you can check as on your phone. It should be live on your Facebook profile. Hopefully.
Not yet.
Getting into the groups.
Let me just double check up here.
All right, we are live right across the groups. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. All right, so let me just see if the paired channels is on. Yep, it looks like it's on. Yep. So is it rolling?
We are good to go.
That's cool. That's a good new little feature that we can do then. That's cool. Whenever we bring the coaches on, we can simultaneously stream on the various groups. That's very cool. All right, guys, what's going on? Good morning. Good morning. We are here to do another episode of the podcast. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, you know what to do. Say hello in the comments. We're going to kick this off in 2 minutes and we'll be ready to rock and roll. And if you do come into this one on replay, make sure that you hashtag replay in the comments so that we know you've been here and got the juice and we're good. Looking, what do you say, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning?
Thank you. I feel it a little bit this morning.
6 o'clock in the morning. It's good. What's going on, guys? How are we? Don't you reckon Erin's background is like so cool compared to mine? I'm like fucking gutted that she's looks so good. God damn. Did you paint that yourself?
I did. Your office is much bigger than mine, but look.
Yes. Well, you know what they say? It's not the size that counts. That's what they say. What's going on, guys? How are we? We're going to kickstart this little podcast with Erin in just over 90 seconds. And the goal is that our young lass, Coach Ez, is going to come in and tell you guys a bit about your story. And I think this is pretty relevant for those of you that are newer to our academy that don't know Erin's story. You want to know who the hell is this woman that messages me and gets amongst and says, gives me guidance. Well, she's going to be introducing herself a little bit more on the potty and being able to share with you her experience as to what's worked in her journey. All right. So if you are watching this one live, we're about to start in about 60 seconds. Can you get down in the comments and say hi? Stop being so like, I'm not saying hi. I'm eating my breakfast. I hope you guys are having a beautiful start. What's that?
It's like people peeking through the windows.
Oh, voyeurism, right? So good. I love it. Good morning, Carls. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And you guys are rolling straight into the UK coaching call after this, correct?
We are.
Cool. All right. So if any of you ladies watch this and you want to join the UK coaching call, Carly will put the links up in the group and we'll be ready to go. Ez, are you ready to kick this off?
Always.
All right.
Let's do it.
Quick sip of the old cuppa and let's do this. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, today's episode, we're bringing on Coach Ez. Hey, Ez. Good morning.
Good morning.
When were you last on the podcast? It must have been like at least, we did the group podcast a few weeks ago. Yeah.
But before that, I don't know. It's been a long time.
Been a long time. Too long. Yeah. And as this mission gets bigger and bigger and bigger, obviously when we bring new lasses and men into our world, hopefully try to inspire you to start your transformation and kickstart. You want to know who the people are that are with you on the way, right? And so this is Coach Ez. Ez, give us the 60-second breakdown of who you are, how old you are, where you live, what your family situation is, so everyone can relate.
That means I have to remember my age. I'm 32. I have 2 kids. I live on the Central Coast. And I'm absolutely bloody awesome. You just like me.
Most women are the better half of a man, but what I can tell you is her husband Drew is most definitely her better half in terms of sensibility I'm talking about. So in this podcast, for those of you that are unaware, Erin started with us as a client. Okay, and this was, how long ago was this, Ez?
I think about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more.
Wow. Okay. And at that point in time, to be fair, Ez was in a pretty stuck place. We're going to talk a little bit about where she was, but so you started must have been like 2022 as a client, 2021, 22 as a client. And one of the things is that you were not unlike any other client that we've worked with that at the start really was overwhelmed and struggled, but being able to stick to things long term. Now you're a coach, and I will say a very heart-centered coach. What I mean by that is someone who literally just doesn't do it for pay packets at all. This is about, for you, and you can talk a bit about this, like why you got into coaching, but I see a woman who was just fucking committed to wanting to help out the former Erin from a previous life. So tell us a bit about where you were kind of pre-transformation, pre-starting.
I mean, my weight, I've always been on the bigger side. I always thought that I was just a bit chunky. So that was just something that I kind of just always dealt with. And then as I got older, I found myself into some really shitty life situations. And, that obviously led me down some paths that, were not great for me whatsoever. But, that also meant that I had a lot of mental health issues. There was quite a lot of trauma happening, and then I was using drugs to, cope with the trauma. And then getting out of that, I found myself obviously, taking drugs, you're not overweight. Your body's just like a stick. And to me, I was like, I love how I look, but it was all the other shit that was happening that was not good for me. But then overcoming that and getting out of that, I started to pack on the weight again. And, it's a difficult thing to explain to someone that hasn't ever been in that situation, but you have this temptation because of body image and, you can see the weight piling on, your body's changing. You're trying to get through all of these, dark things happening inside your head. And you always have that little bit of a pull. But if I just go back to that, I'll have that body that will fix everything, having mental health issues on the inside. I'm damaged on the outside. I look terrible. If I just look on the outside, I can put a face up and, the rest of the world has no idea that I'm actually struggling.
That's a crazy insight, because I think a lot of people equate, if I just get to the body that I want, I'm going to be super duper happy and look at my six pack. And it's just, when you get it and you're like, don't really feel any different. No, and so in your case,
mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, so how did you go about actually getting yourself away from the shittier habits? I'm not talking about, getting out of being overweight. How did you break away from those shitty habits?
So
and the reason sorry to cut in, the reason I asked that is I think a lot of us are wondering why we're not moving forward. And it is because our lifestyle is fucking horrible. It's like, I see these guys, for example, that get on like steroids or testosterone therapy or whatever, but they're still going out and getting belted, and they don't do any exercise. They feed themselves crappy, and then they wonder why there's this kind of polarity. Nothing's changing. So how did you break away from that kind of the damaging lifestyle component first?
I think it was a little bit of luck. I met my amazing husband in very odd circumstances. And, I'm a big believer things happen at the right time. But in saying that, I fell pregnant very, very quickly, very quickly when me and him first met. And obviously after having my son, I packed on heaps of weight. I've tried so many different things. I put on more weight. I was at my biggest after I had my son. And I was really desperate just to try and get the weight off. I was a new mum, and I was like, I'm looking at other mums going, how the hell do you just go back to that body? And here's me, I'm just this big floppy mess. What I've so desperate, you know, like I went to the doctors and I signed up to gyms. I signed up with personal PTs. Like I tried all the skinny teas and all of that, thinking I was doing the right stuff. But it always ended up leading me back to where I started. And I felt pretty like unmotivated with it all. I felt really defeated. And I just kind of thought, you know what? This is just who I am. This is who I am now. I've had kids. I don't have time to go and do all that extra stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, every time I put trust into another person that's like a doctor, you go to your doctor and you think, yeah, this person's going to help me, like fix this problem. And they just throw these tablets at you that make you feel absolute rubbish. And the minute that you stop taking the tablet, you pack more weight on than where you even started in the first place.
Are you talking about appetite suppressants or more like antidepressants and like, or both?
Appetite suppressants.
Right.
So it got to the point where I was just like, I don't want to keep signing up to these things. I don't want to keep spending money. You know, I just need to accept that this is me. And I just need to let go of like feeling comfortable in my own body. Like that's just not something that I'm ever going to achieve again.
So if you're listening to this podcast, particularly if you're listening to this on replay, does this resonate? Is this like, do you feel like this is a story that you constantly get stuck in yourself? I think it's got a couple of parts to it. There's the what's called learned helplessness, which is I've learned to realize that being helpless is me. Like I've learned that because it wasn't always like that. You learn that, right? And the second part is like you have this belief that, well, I can't change. And so you just accept it. And I think that we see this with a lot of people and what the logic is in their mind. Actually, I don't know. I'm gonna take a stab at what I think the logic is. You tell me if this is right or not, because you've been there. Is the logic like I'm a mum or I'm a dad? I've got a kid to care for now, so the kid has to be I'm gonna put all my efforts into the kid. And we give them what we want. And particularly if you've got kids that are, you know, struggling with school or whatever, I'm going to give the kid everything. I'm going to prioritize the kid. But actually, in the back of our mind, it's because we've lost complete faith in our ability to impact our own life in a better way.
100%. That's exactly what it is. I actually felt selfish thinking about myself and trying to do things for me because, you know, previously I thought that going to the gym or, you know, signing up to a program, I thought that was like an unusual thing to do. Like we have this image that doing something for our health is like, oh, that's like a luxury. I don't look at it as like a luxury anymore. I look at it as a necessity for myself and my family. Like previously, I was not a good mom at all. Like I will put my hand up and say I was not a good mom. I have 2 kids that are on the spectrum and they have huge emotions. And I tell you what, when you don't know how to control your own emotions, you end up reacting very quickly. And when you've got kids that are up here and then down here, up here, it's really not a nice place to be. And to move through that, it started with my health.
Well, that's 100%. What I was going to ask. So what do your kids' emotions and your reactivity have in commonality with your body, for example? Like what's the link there?
What do you mean by that?
Like in terms of you've sort of said, look, I had to get on my fitness transformation, like physical transformation first and foremost, partially because I was a bad mum. I was a reactive mum. What does reactivity have to do with your physical self?
Well, I'm a big believer you are what you eat. And if you eat like shit, you're going to feel like shit. Fueling myself with good food had such a huge impact because I obviously signed up when we were in a big lockdown. So the gym wasn't a thing for me. It was, I started focusing solely on my nutrition and just moving my body here and there. It was nothing major. But I never, ever in my life realized how important it was to move your body and get outside and eat good food until I started to do it. And when I started to do it, I started to notice my sleep was better, meaning I wasn't waking up just like tired as, thinking, oh, now I've got to deal with the kid. Oh, and then the kids start whinging and you just instantly back at them.
Big time.
I was feeling better about myself. And then, I don't know, it's I guess it's something that just happens along the way. It wasn't, I can't ever really sort of pinpoint a certain moment where I thought, you know, oh, this is changing and I'm going to do this. It started with me just, in all honesty, I thought that when I signed up, I was not ever going to stick to it. That was just me. I was like, yeah, we're in lockdown. I'm a bit bored. You know, this is the next best thing. I feel like if I sign up to this healthy thing, it's going to make me healthy. And it gave me that feeling in the moment of, yeah, I'm really healthy. But going from, you know, the things that I'd tried before and then into this, it was very, very different. I still had that doubt that it was not going to work because of myself. I thought, no, I'll just give it up.
That's something I want to ask you about, if I can. The self-doubt, how much of that is, and I'm thinking back to our Scotland retreat that we ran a couple of months ago. One of the ladies commented that her self-doubt is rooted in her belief that she just almost doesn't deserve success. Like, it's like, I've kind of learned to put myself so far down the pecking list that it's like, I don't deserve it. I haven't earned it. And so I've started to just doubt myself, and which is why I invest all of the time that I have available into my kids, because they're innocent. They don't, like, I don't believe in myself. So I need to put all of my intent into helping them believe in themselves.
Yeah. For me, you know, self-doubt is still something, not that I struggle with hugely these days, but it is still something that I think I will forever have to make sure I'm on top of. Like, self-doubt, I think, is just something, you know, possibly that we learn from, you know, a young age. You know, I know that I've never really stuck to anything. Like, I've always given up on myself. And then the backlash of that is, yeah, I doubt myself every single time I go, I'm going to do this, you know, motivation's high. I'm going to do this. Yes. And then slowly it's like, oh, but this isn't who I am.
Okay. So I think that's a really great discussion point to, like, that's where we were. Now we started to move into some change. And how did you go about actually doing that? Like moving from being fearful, self-doubting, but then all of a sudden starting to believe that it was possible? Like, how did that happen? Like, physically, how did that happen? Because you said it wasn't an overnight thing where you just, like, all of a sudden I'm just, like, full of self-belief. Like, can you explain how that merging happened?
So obviously, like I said, working on, you know, your physical state, it obviously started to change my mental state. And when I found that, like, I wasn't having such negative thoughts all the time, like, they were still there, but I was going to the gym and I was feeling really good. And that then created a bit of headspace to go, okay, what's actually going on here? And when I signed up to BBA, like, I was given things and taught things that, like, I actually didn't even know that I needed. I've never been a part of a program about health and weight loss that actually talks to you about the way you talk to yourself. And when I started to dive a little bit deeper into that stuff, I thought, wow,
holy fuck, the stuff I'm saying to myself is
yeah, this is the thing that's been missing this whole time. This isn't just about weight, but it was like I had to get to a certain point where I saw results, because it was like positively reinforcing, okay, this is working. Yep, this is working. This is working. And then I was like, great, we've gotten to a point where I start to feel a bit good. And that clearing that mental space, I think, is really important to actually start to understand who you are as a person and what holds you back.
You know, this for me is a point to emphasize, is the small wins. We're like, we've just, because of the way the world is set up now, you know, everything is like, we want it instantaneously because we're conditioned to do that through, like, TikTok and short form reels and quick YouTube. It's got, Like no one's got the patience anymore to listen, even to a podcast like this. If you're still here 20 minutes into this podcast, like you've actually got pretty good bandwidth, because most people are just like, this didn't tell me the answer within 10 seconds. You need to understand the journey and relate to the journey, which is why we're telling this story. Erin was really good about looking for both small wins and taking small steps on the way. You don't have to go from walking 2,000 steps a day to walking 12,000 steps a day. You don't need to, she mentioned, like, when was the last time you'd been in a gym before you walked into the gym for the first time again?
Years and years and years. Like I couldn't even remember.
So did you go from not training at all to in the gym, or did you start just doing some kind of like body weight stuff at home? I can't remember. I haven't looked at your file, but did you just cumulatively start taking smaller actions and eventually got to the point where you're like, you know what? Like, I don't actually fear going in the gym as much as I originally did 3 months ago. Is that how it looked?
I started off, like I said, when I started, we were in lockdown, and I just started off steps. That's all it was. I just started to walk because that's all I felt like I really needed to focus on. And I set myself up for failure. And this is something that I've always known about myself. I set the bar way too high, and then I get really fucking overwhelmed with things, and then I pull back from it all. So I knew that if I was just to compile a whole heap of stuff on top, it was never going to work for me. So I just started with my nutrition, and then I started with my steps. Then I did some home workouts. And then when we came out of lockdown, I was within a community where I was watching ladies in the gym, and I was like, I want to feel that. I want to feel that. What is this about? What's this feeling that they all talk about? And having that support there, I was really nervous to go into the gym because I was still, to what I thought was overweight, and I felt really uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And having support, I remember Carl's jumped into the gym with me for the first time ever and just walked me around, made me feel really comfortable. Previously, I'd never had that. That was just like, just go to the gym, do your thing. And it's like, but what do I do?
How am I meant to know what to do? Yeah.
Like I haven't stepped foot in here, and I'm like, I'm feeling intimidated. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling embarrassed, like all those things. But that support, I think, is like huge. But yeah, I didn't just go, okay, now I'm going to do 5 workouts a week. I was way too sore for that.
Yeah.
It was not possible.
Yeah. And so if you break it down like this, and anything, and I'll give you a micro example if you're listening or watching on the podcast. But like a micro example is a squat. If you've never done a barbell squat, as in like a bar on your back, if you've never done a squat in your life, going from never squatting to squatting every day, that takes a progression. And what that progression might look like is going to depend on the individual. It's going to depend on how the current physical state you're in. Let's pretend you are 30 kilos overweight and your mobility is bad. As an example, your full progression might be, firstly, I'm going to hold on to a chair, and I'm going to be supported by the chair and slowly do half squats. And I'm going to slowly do half squats supported by the chair until I can get to some decent mobility. Then you might go into a body weight squat, right? Then you might say, okay, well, now I can do that. I might do a lunge, okay, where you're splitting your legs, still body weight. Then you might add some dumbbells to that lunge. Then you might come back in and do a goblet squat. Then you might go from a goblet squat to potentially a suitcase squat where you're holding it in either hand. Then you might go on to a Smith machine squat where it's controlled for the balance. Then you might finally get into a barbell squat. Then you might start doing some Bulgarian split squats. So we've talked about almost like 10 different squats here. I want you to think about the same thing for walking, or for going to the gym, or for your mindset, right? You don't go from being fucking completely victimhood into I never have a negative thought in like 2 months. That's not what happens. Yet I think people expect that to happen. They don't expect that mindset overhaul takes time. And so what happens is they get into momentum, and then 2 weeks in, the self-deprecating gremlin says, "You're a fat shit. Why are you even bothering doing this?" Right? And then you start to believe that story, and then the story takes hold, and then you start to recycle the story. All of a sudden, you're back where you started. So, eroding that story is like, what we've got out of this is that you celebrated some small wins. You were gradual in building the habits as opposed to like nothing to everything. Is there anything else here that you needed to do? Like anything that you actually practiced from a practical level around like
things. I really had to embrace fake it until you make it. I used to hate that saying, fake it till you make it. I'm like, only tossers say that crap.
Yeah.
I truly believe that if you want to change your mind and your body, you have to fake it until you make it. You have to visualize a better you.
Fuck.
Like, even when you don't feel like it. Like, I was telling myself, nah. Like, I look at my body now and I just think, holy shit, I can't believe that I used to tell myself that was never possible. It was never physically, scientifically possible to get to where I am now. But I had to visualize myself. I remember doing a vision board and I had photos of myself. I'm never going to be that again. I'm never going to be that again. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be that. And visualizing that, I felt like a huge fraud. I was like, look at me setting all these big goals for myself when, you know, they're not achievable. But I had to just keep reminding myself, yes, that's what I'm working towards. And there's like that of, you know, like you really doubt yourself. But back to like the support side of things, when you've got people around you saying, no, you know what? You can do it.
Yeah.
You can do that. Look at what you have done.
I was there as well. I was there. That was me. Yeah.
It reinforces, okay, cool. Keep pushing. I'll keep telling myself this. Don't really feel it. And then one moment will happen where you might achieve something that you felt like you couldn't. And just for that split second, you have that moment where you go, holy crap, like I can do this.
You know what's really relevant to any of the ladies that are listening to this podcast, that, and I think another great example of this to kind of hit at home, who are listening to the podcast and have come in through meeting Carly, right? Carly, what she did was when she was just like posting her content on Instagram, she's like, the algorithm hates me. I don't know how to use Instagram. The algorithm hates me, just over and 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 over again. But she just kept doing it despite the fact that her self-belief wasn't amazing. She just kept doing it. And guess what? One day, something just clicked when she started to be real to herself. And then, holy shit, it just flew off. I was having this conversation yesterday. Can I zoom in a bit on that fake it till you make it? I was having this conversation with our UK men. And I said that the most important thing that you got to control is your energy, what you put out into the world. And guys go, oh, that's a bit spacey. It's like, no, it's not. Listen, if you go to the shopping center, the counter, and you get your groceries, and you say to the guy or girl there, how's your day going? And they're like, and you just reflect that back. That's what you get back. Now, people will fight to the day, to the teeth, and they'll say, I'm just not like you. I just don't have that type of energy. I'm just not like you, Jace. Like, fucking start being. Right? Like, you want to mope? Your story might be terrible. It might be horrible. I'm not saying that you don't know what I've been through. I don't know what you've been through, but it actually doesn't matter. because it's not going to change. Having a low energy level is not going to change. And one thing that I've learned is when you put the right energy to the world, right, and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to go into this room, this shop, this house, this barbecue, and I'm going to lead with energy. It's weird that all of a sudden it comes back to you, right? And your optimism around life starts to just fucking change. But people will defend it like, no, but that's you. Like, no, that's just not me. Fake it till you make it is 100% true.
Yeah.
In terms of your journey, fast forward now, we are 3 to 4 years into that kind of life transformation that you've had. It's not as if the old Ez is completely destroyed, is it?
No, or is never.
Talk to us about that.
I think for me personally, does that old person ever leave? I like to look at the old me as a fucking survivor of a lot of shit. And that person created who I am today. That person, had to go through a lot of crap to be who I am right now. So I personally don't ever want to cut that old version of me out. There's parts of the old me that I didn't like, and I decided that I was going to work on that stuff. But there was parts of me that I did like, and I still like. I don't want to ever lose my whole identity, because whilst your past doesn't define your future, it does define who you are. It does. 100%. It really does.
100%.
And to just totally turn around and wipe that, I personally don't think that that's what I would ever want to do. Like, I have respect for the shit that I went through, and I have respect for me now for actually still showing up for myself.
Totally. And if I look at like, out of all the ladies that come through our academy, and the guys that come through our academy, I just want to tell you some facts, right? The plan is one thing, right? But the plan's just like, as in like the meal plan or the workout plan. Everyone's like, what do I get in this program? Like, tell me about all the different things that I get. You know what you actually want? Not too many things. Because the not too many things means that you don't get too lost in the weeds of thinking that this is more difficult than it needs to be. At the core of this, there is an identity shift that needs to happen if you're to become the person that you want, get the physical results you want. There's an identity change that's got to happen internally. And whilst you remain the inverted commas old fat person in the mind that thinks like an old fat person, you'll continue to do old fat people things. And I'm saying that colloquially because that's the story you tell yourself. When you start telling yourself a slightly different story, a better story, a more empowering story against what you're telling yourself now, it's not that all of a sudden magic starts to happen, but you think to yourself, you know what, I'll go for a walk, or I'll drink more water, or I'll try to eat a bit more protein, or I might do a home workout, or I might say yes when I would otherwise say no. And those little micro actions, my gosh, they add up over time. And then at a certain point, as Steve Jobs, the former Apple CEO, says in his most famous speech already, the dots never line up looking forward. Have you noticed that? The dots, it never makes sense when you're trying to move towards it. But then when you look back, you're like, fucking hell, it all makes sense why I struggled so long, so much. And all of the really great transformations that we've worked with will be able to turn around now, without ego, and identify all of the reasons why they were struggling, right? But you have to have trust that you're on the process. So you keep moving forward. It's not going to make sense until you're over the hill a little bit, over the mountain a little bit, and you start to look back and go, oh my God, the things I used to say to myself, I would never talk to my kids like this. I would never treat my kids like this, but I was willing to do it for myself. Ez, have you got a kind of anything you want to say to round out this episode?
No, I think we could keep talking about it for longer than what we have. But yeah, I think, if you are somebody that is just starting off in a transformation or you've considered it, just know that you're never really actually just stuck. I used to think that I was really, really stuck, but, half of us just give up on things before we see success. If you stick to something long enough, it will pay off. And that is a big, big lesson that I have learned. I've learned that physically, I've learned that mentally, and I'm still learning that now with my career. Stick to it long enough and it will pay off.
What a great finish. Fantastic story coming back to the podcast for maybe the third or fourth time. And Ez, that was really, really good and insightful, mate. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure you guys appreciated this. If you are listening to the podcast and you have got value in any way from the podcast, we are nowhere near where we want to be with getting this to the world. So whether you screenshot this and stick it on your story, or you share the podcast from Apple or Spotify, or you just go to the app and leave us a rating, would be most appreciated. We love you guys. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had a beautiful start to the morning or into the morning. We're going to leave this now. If you are a woman and you would like to, right now, the women's coaching call is starting in approximately 20 minutes. So that is, sorry. So yeah, get on it. So that's 7 a.m. Sydney time, 7 a.m. Sydney time, 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST, and 8 p.m. UK. You can go to the banner and you can find it, and Carly will put the link up so you know how to get in. See you guys. Chat soon.